Chapter 1. Stop explaining yourself: the trap of justification. We live in an era of noise. We live in a world where everyone feels entitled to an opinion on your life, and more dangerously, you feel an subconscious obligation to answer them. From the moment we are children, we are taught to explain our actions. Why did you do that? What were you thinking? Explain yourself. As adults, this habit morphs into a psychological chain. When you decide to wake up at 4 a.m. to work on a business, when you decide to stop drinking, when you decide to cut out toxic friends, or when you decide to pivot your career, your first instinct is often to draft a speech. You prepare a list of reasons why your choice is valid. You wait for the person across from you to nod in agreement so that you can finally feel allowed to proceed with your own life. But here is the hard truth that strong individuals understand. The moment you feel the need to justify your life to another person, you have handed them your power. When you explain yourself, you are subtly signaling that you are not the ultimate authority in your own life. You are putting your decisions up for a vote. You are saying, "I have made this choice, but I will only feel good about it if you validate it." Weak minds operate on this loop of constant explanation. They are terrified of being misunderstood, so they spend more energy defending their path than actually walking it. Silence is the ultimate power. There is a profound, heavy power in silence. Think of the most formidable person you know. Do they spend their time arguing in the comments section of a social media post? Do they pull people aside to explain why they chose a certain investment or a certain workout routine? No, they act. And then they let the results speak for themselves. Silence creates a vacuum that other people try to fill with their own noise. When you refuse to explain yourself, you create an aura of mystery and self-assurance. People may be confused, they may be annoyed, or they may be intrigued, but they cannot control you. Every time you keep a secret goal to yourself, you build an internal pressure. In physics, pressure is a source of energy. When you have a goal and you tell everyone about it, explaining your vision and your why, you are releasing that pressure. You get a social hit of dopamine just for talking about it, and suddenly, the actual work feels less urgent. You've already received the reward of being the person who is doing big things without actually doing the thing. Strong minds keep the pressure inside. They don't leak energy through their mouths. They understand that not everything requires your explanation. The real-world example, the leader's path. Consider the high-level executive or the elite special forces operator. In a crisis, a leader does not stop to explain the nuance of every command to every subordinate while the building is on fire. They make the call. They move. They take responsibility. If you look at the most disciplined people in the world, those who have built empires or reached the pinnacle of physical fitness, you will find that they are often described as unreachable or intense. This is because they have stopped wasting time defending their choices. While others are standing in the hallway arguing about which door to go through, the disciplined individual has already kicked the door down and moved into the next room. They understand that time spent explaining is time stolen from executing. If you spend 30 minutes explaining to a skeptical friend why you are starting a new diet, that is 30 minutes you could have spent meal prepping. If you spend an hour defending your career choices to your parents, that is an hour of creative work lost forever. The mental energy leak. Every time you explain yourself, you are performing mental labor for someone else. You are trying to bridge the gap between your vision and their limited perspective. Most of the time, this is a futile effort. People see through the lens of their own insecurities, their own fears, and their own failures. If you tell someone who has never taken a risk that you are quitting your stable job to build something of your own, they will never understand. No amount of explanation will make them see it. By trying to explain it, you are only inviting their doubt into your own mind. You are giving their skepticism a seat at your table. Reclaim your energy. Stop trying to make everyone understand you. It is not their job to understand your vision. It is your job to manifest it. Once the manifestation is complete, they will understand by default. Until then, stay silent. Practicing the art of no explanation. How do you begin to build this inner strength? It starts with small, daily interactions. The next time someone asks you why you aren't eating the dessert, or why you're leaving the party early, or why you've been so quiet lately, try this. Give a short, polite answer without a because. I've decided not to. I'm heading out now. I've just been focused. Notice the urge that rises within you to say more. Notice the discomfort of the silence that follows. That discomfort is the feeling of your validation muscle being starved. Let it starve. The more you resist the urge to justify yourself, the stronger your internal foundation becomes. You will find that as you stop explaining, you stop caring whether people agree with you. And once you stop caring if they agree, you are finally free to do exactly what is necessary to reach your goals. The core lesson. The transition from a weak mind to a strong mind is marked by the transition from talking to doing. A weak mind seeks a consensus. A strong mind seeks a result. A weak mind fears being judged. A strong mind fears being stagnant. The moment you stop explaining everything you do is the moment you reclaim your mental energy. You are no longer an actor performing for an audience. You are a builder working on a fortress. And a fortress does not need to explain why its walls are thick. It simply stands. Repetition phrase for the chapter. Not everything requires your explanation. Let your results be your noise. Let your silence be your strength. Chapter 2. Train your mind to endure discomfort. The biological trap of comfort. Human beings are biologically wired for one thing above all else: survival. For thousands of years, survival meant conserving energy, seeking warmth, and avoiding unnecessary risks. Our ancestors survived because they were masters of finding comfort in a world that was inherently hostile. They sought the fire because the night was cold. They sought the cave because the storm was deadly. But we no longer live in that world. We live in a world of climate-controlled rooms, instant calories delivered to our doors, and endless entertainment designed to numb our brains. The biological mechanisms that once kept us alive are now the very things that make us weak. Because we no longer have to face discomfort to survive, we have stopped growing. You must understand this fundamental law of the universe. Growth begins where comfort ends. Inner strength is not a gift you are born with. It is a callus that forms over your mind after it has been rubbed raw by friction. If you spend your entire life avoiding everything that is difficult, everything that is cold, and everything that is boring, you are essentially training your mind to be fragile. You are building a glass house and wondering why it shatters the moment life throws a stone. The illusion of the right time. Most people spend their lives waiting for the perfect conditions to start. They wait for the motivation to strike. They wait for the weather to clear. They wait until they feel rested. But waiting for comfort is a death sentence for your potential. The strongest people you see, the athletes, the elite thinkers, the survivors, did not become strong because they were comfortable. They became strong because they practiced when they were tired, when they were hungry, and when they were completely uninspired. Example: the 4 a.m. mindset. Consider the athlete who wakes up at 4 a.m. to train. The world is dark. It is cold. Their bed is the most comfortable place on earth at that moment. There is no crowd cheering for them. There is no social media audience watching them. There is only the silence of the room and the internal voice that says, "Stay in bed. You can do this later." When that athlete throws the covers off and steps into the cold, they aren't just training their muscles. They are training their will. They are teaching their brain that the body does not run the show, the mind does. That hour of training in the dark is worth more than 5 hours of training in the sun. Why? Because it required the endurance of discomfort. The entrepreneur who works on their business for 3 years before seeing a single dollar of profit is enduring a different kind of discomfort, the discomfort of uncertainty. While their friends are out relaxing and spending their paychecks, the entrepreneur is sitting in a quiet office, facing the possibility of failure every single day. That invisible endurance is the foundation of their eventual success. Voluntary hardship, the Stoic edge. The ancient Stoic philosophers had a practice called premeditatio malorum and the practice of voluntary poverty. They would intentionally wear rags, eat the plainest food, and sleep on the floor for a few days each month. They weren't doing this because they were poor. They were wealthy, influential men. They did it so they could look at their fears and say, "Is this what I was so afraid of?" By voluntarily choosing discomfort, they removed the power that external circumstances had over them. If you can be happy while eating a bowl of plain rice and sleeping on a hard floor, then the world has no leverage over you. You are free. Inner strength grows through voluntary hardship. If you wait for life to throw hardship at you, you will be a victim. But if you seek out hardship on your own terms, you are a warrior in training. This is why we take cold showers. It isn't just about the health benefits. It's about the fact that your brain screams no, and you do it anyway. This is why we fast. It isn't just about the weight loss. It's about proving that you are not a slave to your hunger. This is why we stay at the desk for 1 more hour when our eyes are heavy. It's about proving that your goals are more important than your temporary feelings. The science of resistance. In physics, resistance creates heat and energy. In biology, resistance creates strength. If you want your muscles to grow, you must subject them to hypertrophy. You must lift weights that are heavy enough to create microscopic tears in the muscle fibers. When those fibers heal, they grow back thicker and stronger than they were before. The mind follows the exact same blueprint. Every time you face a situation that makes you anxious, bored, or physically tired, and you choose to push through it rather than retreat, you are creating mental hypertrophy. You are tearing the old, weak versions of yourself and allowing a stronger version to knit itself together. The problem is that most people stop at the first sign of a tear. The moment it gets hard, they quit. They think the discomfort is a signal that something is wrong. In reality, the discomfort is the signal that progress is happening. If you aren't uncomfortable, you are stagnant. Building the invisible fortress. Every meaningful achievement requires long periods of discomfort that no one sees. This is the full audiobook of your life that no one listens to, the boring, grueling parts that happen behind the scenes. Think of the student who studies while others are at the bar. Think of the parent who stays calm and patient while their world is falling apart. Think of the person recovering from an injury who does their physical therapy every single day, even when it hurts, even when it feels like nothing is changing. They are building strength that no one can see. And because no one can see it, it is more real than any outward display of power. It is a fortress built in the secret corners of your daily routine. How to start today. Training your mind to endure discomfort doesn't mean you have to go out and suffer a tragedy. It means you stop avoiding the friction in your day. Do the hardest task first. Stop checking your emails and doing the easy work to feel productive. Sit down with the task that makes your stomach turn. Lean into the physical. When you're exercising and you want to stop, do 2 more representatives. Not because you need the muscle, but because you need to win the argument with your brain. Practice the wait. When you feel the urge to check your phone, wait 5 minutes. When you feel the urge to eat a snack you don't need, wait 10 minutes. Control the impulse. The more you do this, the more you will realize that discomfort is not your enemy. It is your coach. It is the fire that burns away the dross and leaves behind the pure gold of your character. The core lesson. If you want to be unbreakable, you must stop being comfortable. You must stop looking for the easy way out. The easy way is a trap that leads to a soft mind and a hollow life. The next time you find yourself in a situation that is difficult, frustrating, or painful, don't ask, "How can I get out of this?" Ask, "How can I use this to become stronger?" Change your relationship with pain. Stop seeing it as something to be avoided and start seeing it as the price of entry for the life you want. Inner strength is built in the moments when you want to quit, but you don't. It is built in the seconds of hesitation before you act anyway. Repetition line for the chapter. Comfort weakens. Discomfort strengthens. Seek the friction, for that is where the power is made. Chapter 3. Stop seeking validation. The invisible chain. Imagine a performer standing on a grand stage. The lights are blinding, the costume is perfect, and the performance is flawless. When the curtain falls, the audience erupts into thunderous applause. The performer smiles, bows, and feels a surge of euphoria. But imagine that one night, the performer walks onto that same stage, gives the same flawless performance, and at the end, there is total silence. No one claps. No one cheers. The seats are empty. For most people, that silence would be devastating. Their sense of worth would evaporate. They would begin to question their talent, their purpose, and their very identity. This is because most people are not performing for the sake of the art. They are performing for the sake of the applause. This is the validation trap. It is an invisible chain that anchors your self-esteem to the opinions of people who, in many cases, don't even truly know you. If your motivation depends on praise, then you have given the world a remote control to your emotions. If they press praise, you feel high. If they press criticism or silence, you crash. To build inner strength that no one can see, you must cut that chain. The biology of the tribe. To overcome the need for validation, you must first understand where it comes from. We are tribal creatures. For 99% of human history, being liked by the tribe was a matter of life and death. If the tribe approved of you, you were fed and protected. If the tribe rejected you, you were cast out into the wilderness to die. Because of this, our brains are hardwired to seek social approval. Every time someone likes your post, laughs at your joke, or tells you good job, your brain releases a hit of dopamine. It feels good because, evolutionarily, it meant you were safe. But we no longer live in small tribes of 50 people where everyone's opinion matters for survival. We live in a global village of billions. Today, that ancient biological drive has been hijacked by technology. We have outsourced our self-worth to the digital tribe, a collection of strangers, acquaintances, and competitors. When you seek validation in the modern world, you aren't seeking survival. You are feeding an addiction. And like any addiction, it weakens you. Validation is a fragile foundation. Validation is a fair-weather fuel. It works great when things are going well, but it disappears the moment things get difficult. If you rely on external praise to keep you disciplined, what happens when you enter a season of life where no one is watching? What happens when you are in the messy middle of a project where results aren't visible yet? Most people quit during this phase. They quit because the likes stopped coming. They quit because their friends stopped asking how the new business was going. They quit because they didn't get the promotion they thought they deserved. The person with inner strength operates on a different frequency. They don't build their house on the shifting sands of public opinion. They build it on the bedrock of internal standards. They have what Warren Buffett calls an internal scorecard. If you do something that you know is right, but the world thinks is wrong, do you still feel good? If you do something you know is mediocre, but the world praises you for it, do you still feel disappointed in yourself? A strong individual answers yes to both. They are their own highest judge. Their satisfaction comes from meeting their own rigorous standards, regardless of what the crowd has to say. Social media and the performance of success. We live in an era where showing has become more important than doing. People go to the gym not to train, but to take a photo of themselves training. They go to dinner not to eat, but to document the meal. They work on a project not to create value, but to post a hustle update. This performance culture is the enemy of true discipline. When you perform your life for an audience, you are inherently shallow. You focus on the surface-level aesthetics rather than the deep-seated substance. You become a brand rather than a human being. Consider the difference between an influencer and a master. The influencer needs the camera. Their work only exists if it is witnessed. If the internet went down tomorrow, their sense of self would vanish. The master, however, works in the dark. The master carpenter cares about the finish on the underside of the table, the part no one will ever see. Why? Because he knows it's there. His strength is quiet. His discipline is private. He doesn't need a witness to validate his excellence because his excellence is a part of his character, not a part of his marketing. The danger of criticism. The flip side of validation addiction is a paralyzing fear of criticism. If you are addicted to the high of praise, you will be allergic to the low of being judged. This fear keeps people small. It keeps them from speaking their truth, starting their businesses, or changing their lives. They ask themselves, what will people think? As if the thoughts of others were a physical barrier. But realize this, most people are not thinking about you at all. They are too busy worrying about what you are thinking about them. Everyone is the protagonist of their own movie, and you are just a background character in theirs. When you stop seeking validation, you realize that criticism is just data. It's not a reflection of your soul, it's just someone else's perspective, filtered through their own biases and insecurities. A person who is secure in their inner strength can listen to criticism, take what is useful, and discard the rest without a single emotional bruise. Practicing audience-free discipline. How do you break the addiction? You must practice invisible wins. You must intentionally do things that are difficult, virtuous, or impressive, and tell absolutely no one. The anonymous act. Do a favor for someone or donate to a cause, and ensure that your name is never attached to it. Feel the power that comes from knowing you did something good solely because it was the right thing to do, not because you wanted the credit. The secret goal. Start a new habit, a workout routine, a language, a skill, and don't mention it to a soul for 90 days. Let the results be the first thing people notice. When they finally ask, "How did you do that?" give a short, simple answer and move on. The silence test. The next time you achieve something great, sit with the feeling of pride for 24 hours before telling anyone. Notice how the internal satisfaction feels different from the external hit of telling people. The more you do the work without seeking a witness, the more you realize that the witness was never necessary. The work itself is the reward. The discipline itself is the goal. The core mantra. When you stop seeking validation, you become dangerous to the status quo. You cannot be bought with flattery, and you cannot be silenced with shame. You become a self-contained unit of power. You no longer wait for the clapping to start before you begin your work. You don't need the crowd to tell you that you are doing a good job. You know you are doing a good job because you are still standing, still grinding, and still growing when the lights are off and the room is empty. True strength doesn't need a megaphone. It doesn't need a like count. It is the quiet confidence of a person who knows exactly who they are and what they are capable of, regardless of the world's opinion. Core mantra for the chapter. Do the work even when nobody claps. Be your own highest judge. Your value is not a public vote, it is a private fact. Chapter 4. Control your emotional reactions. The mountain and the storm. Imagine a massive, jagged mountain peak. Around it, a violent storm rages. Lightning strikes its ridges, gale-force winds howl against its face, and torrential rain lashes at its base. The storm is loud, chaotic, and aggressive. But the mountain does not move. It does not argue with the wind. It does not try to strike the lightning back. It simply is. Eventually, the storm exhausts itself and dissipates. The mountain remains, unchanged and unshaken. Most people live their lives as the storm. They are a collection of reactions to whatever happens to them. If someone cuts them off in traffic, they become a cloud of rage. If a boss criticizes their work, they become a puddle of insecurity. If a partner forgets an anniversary, they become a whirlwind of resentment. They are entirely at the mercy of external events. To build inner strength that no one can see, you must stop being the storm and start being the mountain. Emotional control is the ultimate hidden strength. It is the ability to maintain your internal equilibrium regardless of the chaos happening outside of you. The strongest people are not those who feel nothing. They are those who feel everything but refuse to let those feelings dictate their actions. The power of the pause. Between every stimulus, what happens to you, and every response, what you do about it, there is a space. In that space lies your freedom and your power. Weak minds have a very small space. The moment something happens, they react. There is no filter, no thought, and no discipline. It is a biological reflex rather than a conscious choice. This is often called emotional hijacking. When you are hijacked by your emotions, the primitive part of your brain, the amygdala, takes over, shutting down the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, long-term planning, and self-control. When you react instantly, you are operating at a lower level of human evolution. You are essentially a sophisticated animal. But the strong mind expands the pause. When a stimulus hits, the strong individual observes the rising emotion. They feel the heat of anger or the sting of rejection, but they do not act on it immediately. They breathe. They analyze. They choose the response that aligns with their long-term goals rather than their short-term impulses. Why the calmest person wins. In any high-stakes environment, be it a boardroom, a courtroom, an athletic field, or a heated argument at home, the person who remains the calmest usually controls the situation. Why? Because clarity is a competitive advantage. When you are emotional, your vision is blurred. You make mistakes. You say things you can't take back. You reveal your weaknesses. You give your opponent or your enemy the exact information they need to defeat you. Example: the negotiation. Consider two people negotiating a contract. One person is visibly anxious, checking their watch, talking fast, and getting defensive when a low offer is made. The other person sits perfectly still, listens intently, and responds with a slow, measured tone. The second person is in total control. By not reacting emotionally to the low offer, they signal that they cannot be manipulated by fear or pressure. Their silence becomes a weapon. The first person, uncomfortable with the lack of emotional feedback, will often start talking just to fill the silence, frequently giving away their leverage in the process. Leadership is essentially the management of your own anxiety and the anxiety of others. If a ship is sinking, the crew doesn't look for the most passionate or most expressive person. They look for the person who is the most composed. Calmness is contagious, but so is panic. True strength is being the non-anxious presence in a room full of chaos. Emotionality versus authenticity. In the modern world, we are often told that expressing your feelings is the same as being authentic. We are encouraged to be vulnerable and to let everyone know exactly how we feel at all times. While there is a place for emotional honesty in deep, trusted relationships, the idea that you should be an open book to the world is a lie that breeds weakness. Uncontrolled emotional expression is not authenticity. It is a lack of discipline. It is emotional incontinence. Just because you have a feeling does not mean that feeling is true or that it deserves to be heard by others. Most of our emotional reactions are based on ego, past traumas, or simple physical tiredness. The strong individual understands that their emotions are like the weather. They change constantly. You don't build a house based on the direction of the wind today. You build it based on the blueprint. Your blueprint is your character and your values. When your emotions contradict your values, the emotions must be ignored. The art of non-reaction. The hardest thing to do when you are insulted is to say nothing. The hardest thing to do when you are failing is to remain analytical. But this is exactly where the witness-free strength is built. When someone tries to provoke you, they are trying to hook you. They want to pull you into their storm. If you react, you have lost. You have allowed them to dictate your state of mind. But if you remain unshaken, if you look at them with a calm, detached curiosity, you have won. You have maintained your sovereignty. There is a story of a Zen master who was being insulted by a young, arrogant man. The master sat quietly while the man screamed obscenities. Finally, the man stopped, frustrated by the lack of reaction. The master asked, "If you offer someone a gift and they do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man replied, "It belongs to the one who offered it." The master smiled. "Exactly. And I do not accept your anger." Practical steps to master your reactions. Building this strength requires daily practice. It is a muscle that must be trained. The 6-second rule: when you feel a surge of intense emotion, anger, fear, or panic, wait 6 seconds before speaking or acting. It takes approximately 6 seconds for the emotional chemicals to begin dissipating in your brain and for your logical mind to start coming back online. Lower your voice. In a conflict, the natural instinct is to raise your volume. Intentionally do the opposite. Lower your voice and slow your speech. This forces your brain to stay in a calm mode and often de-escalates the other person as well. Label the emotion. When you feel a reaction rising, say to yourself, "I am experiencing the feeling of anger." By labeling it, you create a distance between you and the feeling. You are no longer being the anger. You are observing the anger. The so what? Filter. When something bad happens, ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? In 5 months? In 5 days? Most of the things we react to are microscopic in the grand scheme of our lives. The core lesson. Emotional control is not about being a robot. It is about being a master. It is about realizing that your internal state is your most valuable possession, and you should not allow any person, event, or circumstance to steal it from you without your consent. The world will try to pull you in 1,000 directions. It will try to make you angry, sad, jealous, and afraid. Inner strength is the ability to stay centered. It is the ability to think clearly when everyone else is blinded by passion. When you master your reactions, you master your life. Repetition phrase for the chapter. Respond slowly. Think clearly. Stay unshaken. The person who cannot be provoked is the person who cannot be defeated. Chapter 5. Master quiet discipline. The myth of the heroic act. When we think of discipline, our minds often gravitate toward the dramatic. We envision the soldier charging into battle, the athlete collapsing across the finish line after a grueling marathon, or the entrepreneur working a 100-hour week to save a failing company. We think of discipline as a heroic, high-intensity explosion of willpower. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of what true strength looks like. Heroic acts are rare. They are fueled by adrenaline, necessity, or the presence of a crowd. They are loud. True discipline, the kind that builds a fortress within you, is quiet. It is boring. It is repetitive. It is invisible. It is the ability to do the same mundane, unexciting task correctly for the 1,000th time when no one is watching, when there is no applause, and when you don't even feel like doing it. This is exactly why most people never master it. They are looking for the feeling of being disciplined, but true discipline has no feeling. It is simply a protocol. The mundanity of excellence. In the late 1980s, sociologist Daniel Chambliss conducted a study on Olympic swimmers to find the secret to their excellence. He expected to find some hidden spark of genius or some extraordinary personality trait. Instead, he found what he called the mundanity of excellence. He discovered that greatness was simply the result of doing dozens of small, boring things correctly every single day for years. It was the way they hit the water, the way they turned their heads, the way they managed their diet, and the way they showed up to the pool when they were tired. None of these acts were heroic. Individually, they were incredibly boring. But when layered on top of each other over a decade, they produced a result that looked like magic to the outside world. Inner strength is built in this mundane zone. It is built in the Tuesday morning workout when the gym is empty. It is built in the 3rd hour of deep work when your phone is buzzing in the other room. It is built in the kitchen when you choose the healthy meal for the 20th day in a row. These are the quiet wins. They are the bricks of your foundation. No one sees the bricks being laid. They only see the building when it is finished. The novelty trap. The biggest enemy of quiet discipline is the human craving for novelty. Our brains are dopamine-seeking machines. We love new things. A new diet is exciting for the first 3 days. A new business idea feels like a rush of adrenaline for the first week. A new hobby is fun as long as we are seeing newbie gains. But eventually, the novelty wears off. The new becomes the normal. The excitement evaporates, and you are left with the work. This is the boring middle. This is where 90% of people quit. They mistake the loss of excitement for a loss of purpose. They think, I'm not feeling motivated anymore, so this must not be the right path for me. The strong mind understands that motivation is a fickle friend, but discipline is a loyal soldier. When the novelty dies, the work begins. Quiet discipline is the ability to stay in the boring middle. It is the ability to embrace the grind not because you love the grind, but because you are committed to the outcome. Consistency versus intensity. We live in a culture that worships intensity. We love the all-nighter. We love the hardcore workout that leaves you unable to walk. We love the sprint. But intensity is unsustainable. You can be intense for a day, a week, or maybe a month. But you cannot be intense for a decade. Inner strength is not about how much weight you can lift once. It's about how many days in a row you can show up to the gym. Consistency is the multiplier of time. If you do 1% of the work every day, you get the power of compound interest. If you do 100% of the work once a month, you get nothing but exhaustion. Example, the quiet writer. Consider 2 writers. One writer waits for inspiration to strike. Once every few months, they get a burst of energy and write 5,000 words in a single night. They feel like a genius. They tell everyone about their process. The second writer sits down every single morning at 8 a.m. and writes 500 words. They do this whether they feel inspired or not. They do it when they have a cold. They do it when they are on vacation. At the end of a year, The intense writer has 20,000 words of disorganized notes. The consistent writer has 2 finished novels. The world sees the novels and calls the second writer talented, but the writer knows the truth, it wasn't talent. It was the quiet discipline of the 500-word morning. The war against distraction. In the modern world, quiet discipline is harder to maintain than ever before. We are surrounded by attention merchants whose entire business model is to break your focus. Every notification, every infinite scroll, and every clickbait headline is a direct attack on your inner strength. When you allow yourself to be distracted, you are training your brain to be reactive. You are telling your mind that the external world is more important than your internal goals. Mastering quiet discipline requires you to build a monastery for your mind. You must create environments where silence is the default. This means deep work, blocking out hours where the phone is off and the door is closed. Limited input, being ruthless about what information you allow into your head. The power of no, turning down good opportunities so you can focus on the great ones. This discipline is quiet because you don't need to post a do not disturb sign on your social media. You just stop responding. You disappear into the work. You become a ghost to the world so you can become a giant in your field. Living for the after-action report. Most people work for the before photo, the public announcement of their intentions. The strong individual works for the after-action report, the internal satisfaction of knowing the job was done well. There is a unique kind of confidence that comes from knowing you have done the work. It is a quiet, unshakable self-assurance. You don't need to brag because you have the receipts in your own mind. When you walk into a room, you aren't looking for approval because you already have your own. You know that while others were sleeping, you were training. While others were scrolling, you were building. This is the strength that needs no witness. It is the realization that the highest form of discipline is the one that is entirely self-imposed and entirely private. Practical application. The 21-day silence. To master quiet discipline, try the 21-day silence challenge. Identify one boring but essential task, e.g., waking up at a specific time, writing, a specific workout, or a professional skill. Commit to doing it every single day for 21 days. Tell no one. Do not post about it. Do not tell your spouse or your friends. If you fail, you restart the clock. The goal isn't just the task. The goal is to prove to yourself that you can maintain a standard without a cheering section. When you complete the 21 days, you will find that your internal gravity has shifted. You are no longer floating on the opinions of others. You are anchored by your own actions. The core lesson. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment, but it is a bridge built in the fog. You cannot always see the other side. You cannot always feel the progress. You must simply trust the architecture of your routine. Stop looking for the spark. Stop waiting for the rush. Embrace the boredom. Love the repetition. The most powerful version of you is the one that shows up when it's quiet, when it's hard, and when it's completely invisible. Key line for the chapter. The work nobody sees creates the results everyone notices. Master the quiet, and you will master the world. Chapter 6. Accept that progress is slow. The curse of the instant era. We are the first generation in human history to live in a world of instant everything. If we are hungry, we have food at our door in 20 minutes. If we are bored, we have 1,000 movies in our pockets. If we want to buy something, it arrives the next day. We have effectively removed the weight from almost every aspect of our lives. But while technology has sped up, biology and character have not. You cannot download a stronger mind. You cannot one-click a resilient spirit. There is no high-speed fiber optic cable for wisdom. The most important things in life, your health, your skills, your business, and your inner strength, still operate on the ancient timeline of nature. Because we are so used to speed in our external lives, we have become dangerously impatient with our internal lives. We start a workout routine and get frustrated when we don't see a six-pack in 2 weeks. We start a business and feel like failures when we aren't profitable in 6 months. This impatience is the ultimate killer of potential. It leads to hopscotching, jumping from one goal to another, never staying long enough to let the roots take hold. To build inner strength, you must accept a hard truth. Great things take time, and they usually take much longer than you think they should. The law of the harvest. Nature does not negotiate. You cannot plant a seed in the ground and scream at it to grow faster. You cannot give it a year's worth of water in a single day and expect it to reach maturity by the weekend. If you try to force a plant to grow too fast, you will either drown it or break it. This is the law of the harvest. You reap what you sow, but you never reap it in the same season. There is always a gap between the labor and the reward. In that gap, nothing seems to be happening. The seed is underground, in the dark, and to the untrained eye, the field looks empty. Strong minds understand that the empty field phase is when the most important work is happening. The seed is building its root system. Without a deep, complex root system, the plant will collapse the moment it faces a storm. Your slow progress is your root system. Every day you show up and do the work without seeing a result, you are digging your roots deeper into the earth. You are building a foundation that can support the weight of future success. Example: the Chinese bamboo tree. There is a species of bamboo that, once planted, shows absolutely no growth for 4 consecutive years. You water it, you fertilize it, and you protect it, but nothing breaks through the soil. Then, in the 5th year, it suddenly explodes, growing 80 feet in just 6 weeks. Did the bamboo grow 80 feet in 6 weeks? No, it grew 80 feet in 5 years. If at any point during those 4 invisible years the farmer had stopped watering it, the bamboo would have died underground. Most people quit in the 4th year of their journey because they cannot see the growth. The strong individual keeps watering the soil. The plateau of latent potential. In his work on habit formation, James Clear speaks about the plateau of latent potential. Imagine a block of ice sitting in a room that is 25 degrees Fahrenheit. You want to melt the ice, so you start heating the room. You heat it to 26 degrees. Nothing happens. You heat it to 27 degrees. The ice is still solid. 28, 29, 30, 31. Still nothing. From the outside, it looks like you are failing. It looks like your effort is being wasted. But then, you hit 32 degrees. Suddenly, a tiny drip appears. At 33 degrees, the block begins to melt rapidly. Was the heat you applied at 26 degrees wasted? No. It was a necessary prerequisite for the breakthrough at 32. This is how progress works. Progress is not a linear line. It is a series of plateaus followed by sudden spikes. You spend months or years on a plateau where it feels like you are stagnant. You are doing the work, but your temperature is only 29 degrees. The weak mind sees the plateau and says, "This isn't working," and they stop. The strong mind sees the plateau and says, "I'm storing up potential energy for the breakthrough." They understand that slow progress is still progress. The danger of intensity over consistency. When we get impatient, we often try to compensate with intensity. We think that if we can't have it now, we will work 20 hours a day until we get it. We try to compress 10 years of growth into 1 year of manic energy. This is the flash in the pan strategy. It usually leads to burnout, injury, or catastrophic failure. If you try to build a skyscraper on a foundation designed for a shed, the building will fall. If you try to handle the stress of $1 million business before you have mastered the stress of a $10,000 business, you will break. Slowness is a filter. It filters out those who are merely interested and leaves behind those who are truly committed. Slowness is also a protective mechanism. It ensures that you are mentally and emotionally prepared for the success you are chasing. If you were given everything you wanted today, you would likely destroy it because you haven't yet built the character required to sustain it. Redefining your relationship with time. To master the art of slow progress, you must change the way you measure your life. Measure trajectory, not position. It doesn't matter how far you are from the goal, it only matters which direction you are moving. If you are 1% better today than you were yesterday, you are on a winning trajectory. In the long run, trajectory beats position every time. Focus on the system, not the goal. Goals are about the future, systems are about the present. A goal is I want to lose 50 pounds. A system is I never miss a Monday workout. When you focus on the goal, you feel like a failure every day that the weight isn't gone. When you focus on the system, you feel like a success every time you finish a workout. Shorten your horizon. If you think about how much work is left to do over the next 5 years, you will be overwhelmed. If you think about what you have to do in the next 5 hours, you can handle it. Be a long-term thinker, but a short-term actor. The strength of the turtle. There is a reason the fable of the tortoise and the hare has lasted for thousands of years. The hare is fast, flashy, and arrogant. He represents intensity. The tortoise is slow, boring, and relentless. He represents consistency. In the story, the hare loses because he becomes distracted and exhausted by his own speed. The tortoise wins because he never stops. He accepts his pace. He doesn't look at the hare. He looks at the ground in front of him. Inner strength is the ability to be the tortoise in a world full of hares. It is the ability to be okay with being behind in the short term so you can be unbeatable in the long term. While everyone else is sprinting and crashing, you are moving forward, step by step, inch by inch. You are building a momentum that, once established, is almost impossible to stop. Finding joy in the craft. The ultimate secret to accepting slow progress is to stop looking for the end. If you are only doing the work to get the reward, the slowness will be a torture. But if you learn to love the work itself, if you find satisfaction in the doing, then the timeline doesn't matter. When a master painter starts a canvas, they aren't frustrated that it isn't finished in 10 minutes. They enjoy the stroke of the brush. They enjoy the mixing of the colors. They are in the process. When you learn to find peace in the daily grind, you have achieved a level of inner strength that few will ever know. You are no longer a slave to the finish line. You are a master of the now. The core mantra. Impatience is a sign of internal poverty. It shows that you are lacking the inner resources to sustain yourself without immediate feedback. Patience, however, is a sign of internal wealth. It shows that you are solid, that you trust yourself, and that you trust the process. Don't be discouraged by how far you have to go. Be encouraged by the fact that you are still walking. The world is littered with the corpses of people who started fast and quit. The world belongs to those who start slow and never stop. Repetition mantra for the chapter. Slow progress is still progress. Trust the roots. Trust the plateau. The strongest trees are the ones that take the longest to grow. Chapter 7. Learn to be alone. The great modern phobia. We live in an era of unprecedented connectivity, yet we are suffering from a profound phobia, the fear of being alone. If you observe people in a waiting room, at a bus stop, or even sitting at a restaurant while their partner steps away for a moment, you will see a universal reflex. Within seconds, the phone comes out. The thumb begins to scroll. The ears are plugged with podcasts or music. This isn't just boredom, it is an escape. Most people are terrified of the silence because, in the silence, they are forced to confront the one person they have spent their whole lives avoiding, themselves. They are afraid of their own thoughts. They are afraid of the regrets that bubble up when the noise stops. They are afraid of the realization that their life might not be going where they want it to go. So, they drown the internal voice with external noise. But here is the law of inner strength. If you cannot be alone with your thoughts, you are not a master of your life, you are a fugitive from it. To build strength that no one can see, you must learn to be alone. You must move from a state of loneliness, which is a weakness, to a state of solitude, which is a superpower. Loneliness versus solitude. There is a massive psychological difference between being lonely and being alone. Loneliness is a state of lack. It is a feeling of being disconnected and unwanted. It is an external-facing emotion that begs for the presence of others to validate your existence. The lonely person feels like a half-circle, constantly searching for someone else to complete them. Because they are desperate for connection, they often accept low-quality relationships, toxic friendships, and shallow social circles just to avoid the sting of being by themselves. Solitude, however, is a state of abundance. It is the choice to be alone so that you can dive deep into your own mind, your own work, and your own soul. The person in solitude is a full circle. They don't need someone else to complete them. They are already whole. They enjoy the company of others, but they do not depend on it. When you master solitude, you become dangerous to the herd. Why? Because you can no longer be controlled by the threat of exclusion. Most people follow the crowd, even when the crowd is wrong, because they are terrified of being cast out. But if you are comfortable being alone, the threat of being cancelled or left out has no power over you. You are free to speak your truth and walk your own path. The forge of the great thinkers. If you look at the history of human achievement, you will find that almost every great breakthrough, every profound philosophy, and every world-changing invention was born in the monastery of solitude. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, wrote his Meditations, one of the most influential books on Stoicism, while he was alone in his tent on the front lines of a war. Nikola Tesla famously stated, "The mind is sharper and keener in seclusion and uninterrupted solitude." Originality thrives in seclusion free of outside influences. Isaac Newton discovered the laws of gravity and calculus while he was in social distancing during the Great Plague of London, spending 2 years in isolation at his family estate. These individuals understood that the collective mind is often shallow and noisy. To find the signal in the noise, you have to step away from the broadcast. You have to shut the door. Deep solitude allows for deep work, the kind of focused, uninterrupted effort that produces results the rest of the world calls genius. But it isn't magic, it is simply the result of a mind that has been trained to sit still. The mirror of the mind. Why is being alone so difficult for the average person? Because solitude acts as a mirror. When you are surrounded by people, you are playing a role. You are a boss, a friend, a parent, or a spouse. You are performing. But when you are alone, the mask falls off. You are forced to look at your insecurities, your fears, and your unhealed wounds. Most people use busyness as a form of anesthesia. They fill their calendars so they don't have to feel their lives. But the strong individual knows that the only way to heal a wound is to look at it. The only way to defeat a fear is to sit with it until it loses its power. In the silence, you begin to hear your internal monologue clearly. You realize how much of your daily stress is caused by the stories you tell yourself. You realize how much of your behavior is driven by a desire to impress people you don't even like. This clarity is the first step to true power. You cannot fix what you refuse to see, and you can only see clearly when the dust of social interaction has settled. The independence of the soul. People who cannot be alone are easily influenced. They are like a leaf in the wind, blowing in whatever direction the current social trend dictates. They adopt the opinions of their friends, the politics of their newsfeed, and the values of their culture without ever stopping to ask, is this what I actually believe? Inner strength is the ability to stand firm in your own convictions. But to have convictions, you must first have a self that is separate from the group. Solitude is the process of building that self. When you spend time alone, you develop your own taste. You develop your own philosophy. You learn what you actually value when no one is watching. This makes you unshakable. When you return to the world, you are no longer a follower. You are a leader, even if you are only leading yourself. You have an internal compass that doesn't spin just because the person next to you is moving. How to build the solitude muscle. Like every other principle in this book, learning to be alone is a skill that must be practiced. If you jump into total isolation, you will likely panic and retreat to your phone. You must build your tolerance for silence incrementally. The digital fast. Set aside 1 hour every day where your phone is in a different room. No music, no podcasts, no screens. Just you and the room. Notice the physical itch to check for notifications. Sit with that itch until it passes. The solo walk. Go for a 30-minute walk in nature or around your neighborhood without headphones. Observe the world. Observe your thoughts. Don't try to fix anything. Just notice what your mind does when it isn't being fed information. The table for one. Go to a coffee shop or a restaurant and eat a meal by yourself without a book or a phone. It will feel awkward at first. You will feel like people are judging you. This is the validation addiction leaving your system. Stay there until the awkwardness turns into peace. Journaling in the dark. Sit in a quiet room and write your thoughts down. Not for an audience, but for yourself. Be brutally honest. Write the things you are afraid to tell anyone else. This is how you begin to reconcile with your own soul. The core line. There is a massive difference between a person who is alone because they have no one and a person who is alone because they are enough. True inner strength is the ability to be your own best friend. It is the ability to find entertainment in your own mind and peace in your own presence. When you reach this state, you are no longer a beggar for attention. You are a king in your own territory. You will find that the more comfortable you are being alone, the more people will actually want to be around you. People are drawn to those who are self-contained and solid. But by then, you won't need their presence to feel okay. You will be free to choose your company based on quality rather than a desperate need for distraction. The final lesson. The world is getting louder every day. The demands on your attention are becoming more aggressive. The crowd is becoming more demanding of your conformity. In this environment, the ability to retreat into your own mind and remain unshaken is the ultimate competitive advantage. It is the strength no one can see because it happens in the moments when no one is looking. It is the quiet power of a person who has faced their own demons in the silence and come out as their own master. Core line for the chapter. If you can sit alone with your thoughts, you are already stronger than most. Solitude is the forge. Silence is the hammer. Build yourself in the quiet so you can stand in the storm. Chapter 8. Detach from immediate rewards. The cheap dopamine economy. We live in a world that has been meticulously engineered to hijack your brain's reward system. Every app on your phone, every snack in the pantry, and every streaming service on your television is designed by experts to provide you with one thing: immediate, low-effort dopamine. We have entered the era of cheap dopamine, where pleasure is divorced from effort. In the natural world, dopamine was meant to be a reward for achievement. You felt a surge of it when you successfully hunted a meal, built a shelter, or solved a complex problem. It was the fuel that pushed our ancestors to do hard things because the reward at the end was worth the struggle. But today, you can get that same hit of dopamine without leaving your bed. You can scroll through 100 short-form videos, eat a bag of processed sugar, and receive a digital like, all within 60 seconds. The result is a devastating weakening of the human spirit. When you can get the reward without the work, your brain loses its appetite for long-term goals. You become a slave to the right now. To build inner strength that no one can see, you must declare war on immediate rewards. You must learn to detach your happiness from the present moment and invest it in a future that hasn't arrived yet. The two brains, the master and the slave. Neurologically, you are caught in a tug-of-war between two parts of your brain. On one side is the limbic system, the ancient brain. This part of you is millions of years old. It is impulsive, emotional, and focused entirely on short-term survival. It wants the cookie. It wants the sleep-in. It wants the distraction. It operates on the pleasure principle. If it feels good, do it now. On the other side is the prefrontal cortex, the human brain. This is the part of you that can think about the future, plan complex tasks, and understand consequences. It is the architect of your destiny. It knows that the cookie will ruin your diet, that the sleep-in will kill your productivity, and that the distraction will steal your dreams. Most people live their lives with the limbic system in the driver's seat. They are reactors. They see a reward and they grab it. But the strong individual understands that true power lies in the prefrontal cortex. Inner strength is the ability to look a short-term pleasure in the face, acknowledge its pull, and say no because you have a higher loyalty to a future version of yourself. The marshmallow test and the architecture of success. In the late 1960s, a famous psychological study was conducted at Stanford University known as the marshmallow test. A child was placed in a room with a single marshmallow. They were told, "You can eat this marshmallow now, but if you wait until I come back, I will give you a second one." The researchers followed those children for decades. What they found was staggering. The children who were able to wait for the second marshmallow, those who could delay their gratification, grew up to have higher SAT scores, lower body mass index, better stress management skills, and higher professional success. The ability to delay reward is the single greatest predictor of success in human life. Why? Because everything meaningful requires a delayed gratification structure. Muscles require the delayed reward of months of training. Wealth requires the delayed reward of saving instead of spending. Knowledge requires the delayed reward of studying instead of socializing. Character requires the delayed reward of doing the right thing instead of the easy thing. If you cannot win the battle against the first marshmallow, you will never taste the second one. You will spend your life eating single marshmallows, small, insignificant rewards, while the doubles are reserved for those with the discipline to wait. The high cost of the easy life. Short-term pleasure is not free. It comes with a hidden, heavy tax. Every time you choose present comfort over future strength, you are taking a loan out against your future self, and the interest rates are catastrophic. When you choose to skip the workout to watch a show, you aren't just losing 45 minutes of exercise. You are training your brain to believe that your feelings are more important than your commitments. You are reinforcing a pattern of weakness. When you choose to spend money on status symbols to impress people today, you are stealing the financial freedom of the you 10 years from now. You are trading your future sovereignty for a moment of vanity. The easy life is a trap. It feels good in the moment, but it leads to a hard life later on. The hard life, the life of discipline and delayed rewards, feels difficult in the moment, but it leads to an easy life later on. You have to choose your hard. You can have the hard of discipline now, or the hard of regret later. You cannot avoid the hard. The power of non-consumption. In a consumerist culture, we are told that the way to be happy is to consume. Buy this, eat this, watch this, experience this. But inner strength is built through non-consumption. It is the power of not saying the witty insult that would make you feel superior for a second. It is the power of not buying the gadget that everyone else has. It is the power of not clicking on the notification. Every act of not doing something impulsive is a deposit into your bank of inner strength. It builds a sense of internal autonomy. You realize that you are not a puppet being pulled by the strings of your desires. You are the puppeteer. There is a profound, quiet confidence that comes from being in a room full of people who are slaves to their impulses while you remain detached. When everyone is frantically checking their phones, you sit in silence. When everyone is complaining about the diet, you eat your plain meal without a word. You have a secret that they don't. You are the master of your own chemistry. Practical exercises to detach from rewards. To build this strength, you must practice reward detachment in small, controlled ways. You must train your weight muscle. The 10-minute rule. When you feel a strong urge to do something impulsive, check social media, eat junk food, buy something online, tell yourself you can do it, but you have to wait exactly 10 minutes. During those 10 minutes, your logical brain will often re-engage, and the itch will fade. Productive procrastination of rewards. Usually, we procrastinate on work. Flip it. Procrastinate on your rewards. I will watch that movie, but only after I have finished this chapter. I will check my messages, but only after I have gone for my walk. The future self conversation. Before making a choice, pause and imagine the you of tomorrow morning. How will that person feel about this decision? Will they be proud of the discipline you showed, or will they have to clean up the mess you made? Make decisions that make the future you your biggest fan. Voluntary deprivation. Once a week, give up something you enjoy. Skip coffee for a day. Fast for 18 hours. Take a cold shower. Not because you have to, but to prove to your brain that you don't need these things to function. Choosing future strength over present comfort. Detach yourself from the outcome and focus on the character. If you work out and don't see the scale move, don't be frustrated. You didn't do it for the scale. You did it to be the kind of person who works out regardless of the scale. The reward is not the thing at the end of the tunnel. The reward is the person you become while you are walking through the tunnel. The strength is in the waiting. The power is in the refusal. Most people are living for the weekend, for the vacation, or for the retirement. They are living for the hit of pleasure at the end of the day. But the person of inner strength lives for the process. They find a higher form of pleasure in the knowledge that they are in control. They have traded the cheap dopamine of the world for the deep satisfaction of self-mastery. The core lesson. If you want to be powerful, you must be patient. If you want to be unbreakable, you must be willing to suffer a little bit in the short term to gain everything in the long term. Do not be distracted by the glittering prizes that life dangles in front of you. Most of them are distractions designed to keep you average. Keep your eyes on the horizon. Keep your feet on the path. When you detach from immediate rewards, you become a long-term threat to every obstacle in your way. Repetition phrase for the chapter. Choose future strength over present comfort. The longer the wait, the greater the power. The shorter the impulse, the deeper the cage. Chapter 9. Become mentally unbreakable. The anvil of life. There is a fundamental misunderstanding about what it means to be strong. Many people imagine that mental strength is like a suit of armor, a rigid, impenetrable shell that prevents anything from hurting you. They think that to be unbreakable is to be made of stone, feeling nothing and moving for no one. But stone is brittle. If you hit a stone with enough force, it shatters into 1,000 pieces. If you build a house that is perfectly rigid, the first earthquake will bring it down. True mental unbreakability is not about rigidity. It is about resilience. It is the quality of the anvil. The anvil is struck by the hammer thousands of times every day. It feels every blow. It endures the heat of the forge. But at the end of the day, the hammer is worn out and the anvil remains. Life will test you. This is not a maybe. It is a mathematical certainty. You will face failure that feels like a gut punch. You will face rejection that makes you question your worth. You will face loss that leaves a hole in your world. You will face criticism from people who don't have the courage to do what you are doing. If your strength is just a thin shell of ego, these things will break you. To be unbreakable, you must build a mind that doesn't just survive the strike, but uses the energy of the blow to become more solid. The concept of antifragility. The thinker Nassim Taleb introduced a concept called antifragility that perfectly describes the highest form of inner strength. The fragile breaks under stress, like a wine glass. The robust resists stress but remains the same, like a steel beam. The antifragile actually gets better when it is stressed. Your body is antifragile. When you lift a heavy weight, you are stressing your muscles. You are literally creating microscopic tears in the tissue. In response to that stress, the body doesn't just heal, it overcompensates. It builds the muscle back thicker and stronger than it was before so it can handle that stress again. To be mentally unbreakable, you must adopt an antifragile mindset. You must stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "How is this happening for me?" When you view every setback as a mental weight session, your relationship with struggle changes. You stop fearing the storm because you know the wind only makes your roots grow deeper. You become a person who cannot be defeated because even your losses are turned into lessons that fuel your future wins. Reframing failure as data. The reason failure breaks most people is that they attach their identity to the outcome. If the project fails, they believe they are a failure. If the relationship ends, they believe they are unlovable. This is a fragile identity. The unbreakable mind treats failure as neutral data. Imagine a scientist in a lab. If an experiment doesn't produce the expected result, the scientist doesn't fall into a depression or quit their career. They simply say, "That's interesting. Now I know one way that doesn't work." They take the data, adjust the variables, and run the experiment again. Every resilient individual you admire has a graveyard of failures behind them that is much larger than their monument of success. Thomas Edison failed 1,000 times before perfecting the light bulb. Abraham Lincoln lost numerous elections and failed in business before becoming one of the greatest presidents in history. J.K. Rowling was a broke, single mother whose manuscript was rejected by 12 different publishers. What separated these people from the millions who quit? They didn't have thicker skin. They had a different map. They didn't see failure as a wall. They saw it as a directional sign. When they hit a no, they interpreted it as not this way. Because they didn't take it personally, they didn't lose their mental energy. They stayed in the game long enough for the math of success to finally work in their favor. The architecture of the internal narrative. The world defines you by your results, but you are defined by your internal narrative. When you are in the middle of a crisis, what is the voice in your head saying? There are two types of self-talk, the victim narrative and the warrior narrative. The victim says, "This is unfair. I didn't deserve this. I can't handle this. It's always going to be like this." The victim narrative is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It paralyzes you and makes you a spectator in your own life. The warrior says, "This is difficult. This hurts. But I'm the kind of person who handles difficult things. I will find a way through this, or I will make one. I have survived 100% of my bad days so far, and I will survive this one too." Being mentally unbreakable doesn't mean you don't feel the pain. It means you don't let the pain tell the story. You are the author. You decide that this chapter of loss is simply the setup for the comeback chapter. You control the meaning. And if you control the meaning, you control the outcome. Flexibility as strength, the bend, not break principle. In a hurricane, the mighty oak tree often gets uprooted. It is big, it is strong, and it is rigid. It stands its ground and refuses to move. Eventually, the force of the wind exceeds the strength of the wood, and the tree snaps. Meanwhile, the humble willow tree or the blade of grass bends. It sways with the wind. It touches the ground. But once the storm passes, it stands back up, unscathed. Inner strength requires psychological flexibility. You must be able to adapt to changing circumstances without losing your core identity. If you have a rigid plan for how your life must go, you will break the moment reality deviates from that plan. Unbreakable people are fluid. When a door closes, they don't spend years banging their heads against it. They look for a window. When they lose everything, they don't mourn the old self forever. They begin building the new self immediately. They are committed to their mission, but they are flexible about their methods. The shield of detachment. One of the most powerful tools for mental unbreakability is detachment. This doesn't mean you are cold or heartless. It means you have a shield between your core self and the chaos of the world. Most people are too sticky. They let every insult, every news headline, and every social media comment stick to them. They carry the weight of the world's opinions on their shoulders. To be unbreakable, you must become Teflon. You must realize that most of what people say and do has nothing to do with you and everything to do with their own internal struggles. When someone criticizes you, it is simply a vibration of air hitting your eardrums. It only has power if you give it power. If you remain detached, if you look at the criticism with a calm, analytical eye, you can decide whether there is a kernel of truth in it to help you grow, or if it is just noise to be ignored. By detaching from the need to be liked and the fear of being judged, you become a fortress. Building the resilience reserve. You don't build mental unbreakability during a crisis. You build it before the crisis. You build it during the peaceful times through the small acts of discipline we've discussed in earlier chapters. Every time you choose the hard path over the easy one, you are making a deposit into your resilience reserve. When you finish a workout you didn't want to do, you are telling your brain, "I am a person who keeps their word." When you stay calm during a minor frustration, you are training your emotional brakes. When you work through a boring task without distraction, you are building your endurance muscle. When a true tragedy hits, you draw from this reserve. You have evidence from your own life that you are strong. You don't have to believe you are unbreakable. You know you are, because you have practiced being unbreakable in small ways every single day. The core mantra. If you are reading this, it means you have already endured years of struggle. You have faced rejection. You have felt the sting of failure. You have wondered if you could keep going. And yet, here you are. You are already stronger than you realize. But to reach the next level, you must stop fearing the struggle. You must embrace it. You must realize that the fire of life isn't there to consume you. It is there to temper you. It is there to burn away the weakness, the ego, and the distractions, leaving behind only that which is essential and unbreakable. You are the mountain. You are the anvil. You are the willow. You will face the storm, you will feel the hammer, and you will bend with the wind. But you will not break. Core mantra for the chapter. You bend, but you do not break. Every strike of the hammer is a gift that makes you more solid. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are the architect of your resilience. Chapter 10. Build strength that needs no witness. The billboard versus the foundation. If you walk through any major city, you will see two types of structures. You will see the billboards, bright, flashing, loud, and desperate for your attention. They are designed to be seen from miles away. They promise success, beauty, and status. But a billboard is a flimsy thing. It is made of paper and light. A strong wind can tear it down, and a power outage can make it vanish. Then, there is the foundation of the building beneath the billboard. It is buried deep in the dirt. It is made of cold concrete and heavy steel. It is dark, it is damp, and no one ever takes a photo of it. No one walks by and says, "Look at that magnificent foundation." Yet, it is the only reason the building stands. It carries the weight of every floor, every person, and every piece of furniture. If the foundation fails, the billboard falls. Most people in the modern world are living like billboards. They are obsessed with the display of their lives. They want the world to see their strength, their discipline, and their success. But true strength, the kind that survives the storms of life, is like the foundation. It does not perform. It does not seek an audience. It exists in the dark, and it is strongest when it needs no witness. The death of privacy and the birth of performance. We are living through the death of the private self. With the advent of social media, we have been conditioned to believe that if an event wasn't documented, it didn't happen. If you went to the gym and didn't post a story, did you even train? If you did a good deed and didn't tell anyone, does it still count toward your character? This constant need for a witness has turned our lives into a 24-hour performance. When you perform, you are inherently weaker. Why? Because your focus is split. You are not focused on the quality of the work. You are focused on the perception of the work. You are looking at yourself through the eyes of an imaginary audience, wondering if you look disciplined enough or strong enough. The person of inner strength has killed the performer within them. They have rediscovered the power of the secret life. They understand that there is a profound psychological weight to the things you do solely for yourself. When you do something difficult and tell no one, you are sending a powerful message to your subconscious. I am doing this because it is who I am, not because I want credit. This builds a level of self-respect that no amount of public praise can ever match. The archetype of the quiet professional. In elite military circles, there is a concept known as the quiet professional. These are individuals who have undergone the most grueling training on earth. They are masters of combat, strategy, and endurance. Yet, when they return home, they don't wear their medals on their sleeves. They don't brag in bars about what they've done. They don't feel the need to prove their toughness to strangers. They are quiet because they have nothing to prove. They have seen the elephant. They know exactly what they are capable of. Their confidence is so deep and so finished that it doesn't require external validation. Contrast this with the loud person, the one who talks about their grind, their hustle, and their warrior spirit. In almost every case, the louder a person is about their strength, the more insecure they are. They are using their words to cover up a hole in their character. They are trying to convince themselves by convincing you. The quiet professional understands that competence is its own reward. When you are truly good at what you do, and when you are truly strong in who you are, you don't need a megaphone. Your presence is your resume. Your results are your evidence. Your silence is your power. Integrity, the strength of the dark. The ultimate test of your inner strength is what you do when you are 100% certain that you will never be caught and never be rewarded. This is the definition of integrity. Do you still work with the same intensity when the boss is out of the office? Do you still stick to your diet when you are alone in a hotel room in a foreign city? Do you still do the right thing when the wrong thing would be easier and more profitable? Weak people have situational ethics. Their behavior changes based on who is watching. They are good when there is a reward and bad when there is a shortcut. This means they have no core. They are just a reflection of their environment. Strong people have internal ethics. Their behavior is a constant, like the speed of light. It doesn't matter if they are in a crowded stadium or a locked room, they are the same person. They hold themselves to a higher standard than the world would ever demand of them. They are their own toughest taskmaster. Building strength that needs no witness means becoming your own highest witness. You must reach a point where the most important opinion in your life is your own. If you can look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and know that you didn't cut corners, that you didn't lie to yourself, and that you gave your best in the dark, then you have a strength that is untouchable. The sacredness of the unseen win. There is a specific kind of energy that is generated when you accomplish something great and keep it a secret. It feels like a sacred power. Think of a time you helped someone and didn't tell a soul. Think of a time you overcame a massive temptation and kept it to yourself. That feeling of secret victory is the purest form of dopamine. It is clean dopamine. It doesn't leave you feeling hollow like the cheap dopamine of social media likes. It fills you up. It makes you feel solid. When you broadcast your wins, you leak that energy. You trade a deep, internal transformation for a shallow, external pat on the back. You are essentially selling your soul for pennies. Keep your wins secret. Build your empire in silence. Let people wonder why you are so calm, why you are so successful, and why you are so unshakable. Don't give them the blueprint. Don't show them the scars. Just show them the results. There is a magnificent irony in this. The more you hide your strength, the more people can feel its weight. Living the 10 Principles. As we conclude this book, let us look back at the architecture we have built. We began by stopping the explanations, reclaiming our energy from the court of public opinion. We moved into voluntary discomfort, hardening our minds against the softness of the world. We cut the chains of validation and learned to control our emotional reactions, becoming the mountain in the storm. We mastered quiet discipline and accepted that progress is slow, trusting the roots of our growth. We learned to be alone, finding peace in our own company, and we detached from immediate rewards, investing in our future selves. Finally, we became mentally unbreakable, turning every blow of the hammer into a gift of strength. And now, we arrive at the final principle. Build strength that needs no witness. This is the roof of the fortress. It is the realization that the journey was never about the world. It was never about the money, the status, or the fame. It was about the man or woman you became in the process. It was about the conversation between you and your soul. The final principle. The silent foundation. The strongest foundation is the one built in silence. If you can master this, you can master anything. You can walk through the world with a quiet fire in your eyes. You don't need to yell. You don't need to boast. You don't need to defend yourself. You are whole. Go out into the world and be the invisible giant. Work harder than everyone else, but say less than everyone else. Be the person people can rely on when the world falls apart, but be the person who disappears when it's time to take the credit. True power is not found in the look at me. It is found in the I am. It is the strength that exists when the lights are off, when the room is empty, and when there is nothing left but you and the truth. Build that strength. Build it every day. Build it in the dark. Build it until you are so solid that nothing, no failure, no loss, no criticism, and no praise can ever move you again. Final principle of the book. The strongest foundation is the one built in silence. True strength does not perform, it simply exists. Be the foundation, not the billboard. Your silence is your power. The end.